When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. When you fall in love with the marathon, it can be so tempting to keep signing up for more, especially if you love the routine that you've built and you're seeing success. But as a running coach who's helped thousands of runners over the past decade, this is often a big mistake. You would think that more experience and more time training would make you a better marathoner, and that is true. But at a certain point, if you're always training for the marathon, you might actually get worse at it. How is this possible? And what should you do instead to actually get better at the marathon in between marathon training cycles? Let's find out. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, we are going to go over the best way to maximize your fitness in between marathon training cycles. We'll go over why taking too much time off isn't a great idea, how to shift your training to build well-rounded fitness, and how to spot the things you should focus on because they're not the same for all runners. Now, if you love marathons so much that you like to do them every month of the year, this isn't the episode for you. If you're happy and you're healthy doing it that way, then I'm happy. But if you are the type of runner who really wants to get better and better at the marathon and is willing to take a long-term view, listen up. Before I get into the details, I want to take a moment to talk about my PR team. The PR team is a small group of runners just like you who are working with me and each other to stay consistent, stay accountable, and work towards becoming better runners every day. Not to mention, it's really fun. I'll talk more about the team later on in the episode, but if you are ready to learn more right now, head to theplantedrunner.com/group. And of course, don't forget to stay tuned all the way to the end of the episode for another Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today, let's explore some of your options for your training once you're recovered but aren't quite ready to train for your next marathon. The first step is to think about your goals, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your lifestyle. If you just ran a big spring marathon, you might have your eye on your next marathon in the fall. And of course, you'll want to get better at it, right? Preparing now, before you get into a true marathon cycle, can help you start your new training phase at a better level of fitness. Or maybe you're ready to switch things up a bit, trying out new distances and new challenges. This can be a fun way to stay motivated and can even help sharpen up your speed and stamina. Another common experience is that you're honestly questioning if marathon after marathon is really for you. If you've had a hard training buildup, whether that was due to physical, mental, or lifestyle issues, you might be looking forward to not having anything on the calendar for a while. Whatever you decide, I'll go over the best way to use this in-between time to maximize whatever your goal is. The training in between marathon cycles is often seen as not quite as important as the serious business of marathon training. While yes, you can be a lot more flexible with your running, you don't want to get too far away from your hard-earned fitness either. After spring marathons, many runners simply want to take a break from scheduled training, especially if the weather is just too hot to run long. This is completely natural, but if you begin to neglect your speed and your strength, the effects of detraining will slowly start to creep up as the weeks go by, and by the time you decide it's time to begin your marathon training again, your fitness might have regressed. You might even be right back where you started at the beginning of your last training cycle. And that means it's a lot less likely that you're going to improve on your race time from the spring. This detraining period is a big reason for fitness plateaus in the marathon. It's not because you're getting older or slower. It's because you're not maximizing your down cycles. Now, when I say maximize, I'm not talking about training as hard as you would for a marathon. You definitely do need a break from the long miles. What I'm talking about is shifting your training to focus on speed, strength, endurance, or another area where you can improve. Let's tackle those one by one. Speed is something that pretty much all runners would like to have more of. We want to be able to run a given distance faster than before, and we want to have those faster paces feel easier. Of course, you should be working on your speed within a marathon buildup, but with all the miles and the long runs, there's typically not enough freshness in your legs to really perform your best in your highest gear. If you are one of those runners that just loves the zen of the long runs and you feel like your weakness is speed, now is the perfect time to flip that approach around. A great way to do this is to start training for the 5K. Most towns in the United States have 5Ks just about every weekend in the summer. And if you're lucky enough to live somewhere that has a local park run, you've got a race every Saturday if you like. The reason the 5K is amazing is because while it should be much faster than your marathon pace, it's still highly aerobic, which is exactly what you need for the marathon. How do you train for a 5K? Well, I talked about that in my recent PR Training Lab episode featuring Kendall, who wanted to break 20 minutes in the 5K. That is a must-listen episode if you're considering a 5K cycle, no matter what your pace is. The quick and dirty is that you break up the 3.1 mile race into small chunks and practice race pace each week for 6 to 8 weeks. So if your goal pace for the 5K is 8:30 per mile, for example, you would head to the track or a flat road and start running 8:30 pace for 400 meters or a quarter mile. 12 times a quarter mile is 3 miles, and that's almost the distance of your race. In between those quarters, you would jog for a minute or perhaps 100 meters on the track. Then each consecutive week, you'd stretch out your speed intervals until you can run the entire 3.1 miles at your goal pace. The trick to 5K workouts is twofold. You want to keep the recoveries at a jog to keep the run continuous, and you also want to make sure you don't run the speed reps too fast. Your goal is not to run as fast as possible. Your goal is to stretch out your speed for a longer distance. So that means controlling your pace from the very first rep. Again, there is more to 5K training than just this kind of workout, but sharpening up your 5K pace will definitely help you enter your marathon block with a higher level of speed than when you started. Besides working on your speed, there are several other ways to boost your fitness level in the off-season while still maintaining a healthy balance with the rest of your life. I'll go over those in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you about the opportunity for you to get stronger, faster, and stay motivated to hit your running and nutrition goals this year. And of course, that's to join the PR team. I started it in 2022, and I have to tell you, it is even better than I imagined. Each team member gets a custom training plan made by me for you based on your unique fitness, goals, and lifestyle. Everything you need to achieve your running dreams is included, such as strength training, recovery, and even cross training if you want it. I include weekly mental strength training as well as training tips and nutrition guides. But here's where it gets really cool. The group has its own page within the app where we share workouts, ask training questions, and get feedback from me and the other teammates. And each week I create an exclusive private podcast just for the team based on the questions I get and what I see in their training each week. And I usually end up sharing behind the scenes and exclusive sneak peeks with the team that I don't share anywhere else. So instead of joining some Facebook group or sitting through another Zoom call, You get to listen to tailored advice on the run, and you don't have to do all of this alone. So if you are ready to take your running to the next level and join an amazing team of runners, head to theplantedrunner.com/group and join us today. It's more affordable than you think, and I can't wait to have you. Welcome back to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. The next place to focus during the break between marathon cycles is strength. When you're in the thick of marathon training, you really don't want to be lifting weights more than 2 or 3 times a week. Sure, some people break up their strength work into shorter, more frequent sessions, but overall, there's not a whole lot of room in a marathon buildup to get really strong without it affecting your runs. So what does a strength phase look like? Well, this could be 4 to 8 weeks of a gradually escalating strength program. If you lifted 2 to 3 times a week during marathon training, you could add a day or 2. You'll also want to focus on lifting heavier. Lifting heavy builds muscle in a shorter session than lifting lighter weights, so you don't have to spend hours in the gym. You should be running less at this point, so you're simply exchanging some of your run time for strength time. You can also build strength into your runs, and a great way to do that is hill training. Hill repeats are great for building strong legs, and they can be done a couple times a month in your strength phase as your workout day. This is also a nice time to add in some plyometrics if you're not already. Plyos or jumping workouts can sometimes be too intense during marathon cycles, but they are perfect right now. Plyos build leg strength, power, and help improve your balance, all key components of strong marathoners. The third area to focus on is endurance. Now, this one might seem a little strange since marathon training itself is mainly focused on endurance. But for those of you who are new to the marathon or really struggled during the second half of the race, your endurance could probably use some work. It's also something to work on if you seem to be much better at the shorter distances, but just can't quite translate that to longer races. Endurance is built over time with lots of aerobic running, and it's not only made with long runs. It can get better every day of the week. So take a look at how much you're running during the week. Could you add a mile to your easy runs? Could you add another day of easy running? Could you add a day of easy aerobic cross training like biking, swimming, or walking? All of these options are great for boosting your aerobic engine, but don't do them all at once. Add one variable at a time for a few weeks, reassess how you're doing, and then determine if you can handle more or not. The next area you should be working on isn't strictly about training. It's about strategy. Hopefully, you took the time after your last race to debrief and really understand what went right and what went wrong. Now is the time to take another look at what you wrote. Take some time to identify what you really did well and where things can be improved. The off-season is the ideal time to work on both. Let's say you had a good race, but you made the very common mistake of going out too fast in the early miles. The end of the marathon will always be tough, but it will be exponentially harder if you burned up too much speed in the first 5 to 10K. So how can you improve on this for next time, especially if you're trying to run faster overall? The first question to ask yourself is why? Why did you go out too fast in the first place? Were you unaware of your pace? Were you trying to go by effort and thought you were going slower than you really were? Or were you just sort of winging it? The good news is that no matter what the explanation is for a too fast start, learning not to do this is a skill that can be learned. One of my favorite workouts to practice this is the cut down or progressive tempo. Here's how you do it. After an easy mile or two as a warm-up, begin to run progressively faster by about 10 seconds per mile. Where you start and where you end up will depend on your fitness and mileage, but the key is to start off easy and end up fast. For example, you might start off 20 seconds per mile slower than your marathon pace and speed up to your half marathon or even 10K pace after a few miles. The exact pacing is not the goal. The goal is to start slow and end fast, and the best way to do that is to take it really easy at the beginning, just like you need to in a marathon. Your cut down might be 3 miles or it might be 10 miles, and it should feel pretty good at the beginning and pretty darn hard at the end. It teaches you not only how to run hard when you're tired, but it forces you to really be in touch with a big range of paces. After all, speed is only useful if you can control it. And finally, the downtime in between marathon cycles can be used to focus holistically on who you are as a well-rounded athlete and person. After all, marathon training requires you to be highly dedicated and focused, sometimes at the expense of other things in your life. When I asked my followers on Instagram what they like to do during this time, most of them responded with some combination of everything I just mentioned. With fewer miles to run, we can focus on both speed and strength. We can reconnect with our running buddies for some fun miles instead of worrying about what's on our schedule for the day. We can finally focus on mobility work or yoga. We can sign up for fun races with the kids. By the time the new marathon cycle starts, we will be stronger, faster, more mobile, and maybe even a little happier than we were before. And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is called liminal space. This is the concept of being in transition or the in-between phase, often when you don't know how long you will be there. The pandemic is an example of liminal space, which was harder to deal with because we had no idea when it would end. In running, you often find yourself in that space between your last PR and your next one. You train with the hope of becoming better than you are right now without knowing if or when you will achieve it. And that can be frustrating if you let it. A way to lift yourself out of this constant sense of transition is to remember that this moment right now is your life. You will spend far more time in the in-between than you will be at any goal point. Or said in a different way, it really is about the journey, not the destination. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can enter to win a free custom training plan for your next race and get featured on the show. Just write an Apple Podcast review and enter at theplantedrunner.com/PRLab. Of course, reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.